Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good, sir.
Can
You
you
can.
hear properly?
Yes, it is absolutely perfect. So,
Okay, perfect.
right. So, as the viewers join, I thought I would introduce you a little in a different manner. Like,
Okay.
probably, I believe you are the most loved one to the Gram generation, and you also love them equally back. And and also I think this must be I think over 10th online interview of yours in past 1 month, if I'm not wrong.
No, I didn't do that many, as a lot of people
Okay,
did.
right. But we are actually really honored, sir, that you accepted our invite, and uh, it is actually quite unprecedented times whereby we are all facing the same trouble globally.
Hmm.
Right. So let me formally introduce our guest for today's session, architect Sanjay Puri from Sanjay Puri Architects based in Mumbai. Recently, in 2018, after winning the best housing project in the world, he has now won over 150 international awards globally. And I think, if I'm not wrong, in 2019 itself, he was featured and his projects were highly featured in over 60 international magazines and portals. So he's the best person to help us to understand what is the importance of communicating architecture. And so we are very glad, sir, that you took out time from your schedule to join us for this session. So, I have recently read a lot about you, and I came to know that you joined architecture being inspired from the Fountainhead novel. So,
Yes, that's true.
right. So, could you please tell us a little about it till our other viewers join?
Yeah, sure.
Right,
So
sir.
I was very good at drawing,
Right.
and while I was studying in a public school called the Mayo College in Ajmer in India, so uh, I was the artist of the year that year in my last year, and I was thinking of becoming an artist
Okay.
professionally because I was that good at drawing. And then I happened to read Fountainhead when I was between 16 and 17 years old. And I
Okay.
said, wow, this is amazing. And this sounds like the thing to do because it's like marrying art and taking it to another level because
Right.
people can actually use those spaces, right? So it's like art, but it has an impact on human behavior, on people, on people's lives.
Right.
So that was a starting point.
True. Even it is, I think, not known to a lot of people that the best housing project that you won is situated in Mathura, one of the Hindu temple cities of the country, whereby it was the birthplace of Lord Krishna. And it was a student hostel. I would like to tell my viewers that a student hostel designed in a month and executed and built in a record time of 7 months at $21 per square feet. So it was quite an inspirational project, sir. So how did you ever think that you will win a prize for that project?
No, realistically speaking, no, because when
Okay,
we were shortlisted and I saw the rest of the entries, there were entries from some of the top firms in the world
right,
in the World Architecture Festival, and there were buildings which were in London, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, and across. And most of them were these 30, 40, gleaming skyscrapers, different kinds of buildings. And ours was like a really low cost housing project just for students, built at a very low cost. So, really speaking, we didn't think it stood any chance against those kind of projects. But what the jury liked was that it was very honest. It was done in response to the site. I mean, it's not a building that you could pick up from there and put somewhere else. So it respected what the site was and it maximized on the site's potential. And it did all of that, you know, making the whole building sustainable by simple, just planning methods, by orientation towards the north, by the way the open spaces were planned, by the way bay windows are introduced for every student. And that is what the judges like. They like the simplicity of the project and the way it corroborates the context of the site with respect to climate and all of that.
Right. So, okay, we'll formally begin now. I see we have close to 350 people online. So, yes, we'll formally begin. I am Pappal Suneja. I am the country reporter for World Architecture Community from India. And I'm currently pursuing my research from Bauhaus Dessau Foundation, Germany. And we have our guest with us, our very first guest for these online talk series, architect Sanjay Puri. He is a highly acclaimed architect with over an experience of 2 decades, and his projects are multivaried projects in terms of all kinds of different disciplines that we understand in terms of the building function and morphology. So, sir, as it has been 20 years, so could you, as we begin, could you share some thoughts about how has the journey been by far?
Well, the journey has been amazing. I
Okay,
mean, actually amazing. I would love to repeat the whole thing all the way, right from the beginning in the very same way.
right.
So it was that good. I mean, right from the day on my 18th birthday when I joined an office before joining College of Architecture to understand what architecture is really about, from that day onwards till now, it's been an amazing experience. Working with all kinds of people, different kinds of clients, how they react, how difficult it is to convince people. It's always, it's like a struggle with every project, and that continues even till date. But it's fun because there is this whole thing about how when you do something that you believe in, and then how do you convince the person that that is the correct thing in spite of all the conceived notions that they come with. Every client comes with a preconceived notion. My house must look like this, my office must look like that. I want something that I saw in Hong Kong somewhere, in Singapore somewhere. And then you have to bring them down to earth gradually and convince them as to what you're doing is specifically for them, for that site, and it is the best kind of solution that is possible within all those constraints, restraints, and all of that. It's been a very interesting journey.
Right. So, sir, as we were talking about your different projects and international awards, so in comparison to when you started, how has the current rapid change in technology changed your process, your design process, and your practice eventually?
Well, that's been a dramatic sea change. We started when I started my office, everything was hand drawn. There were no computers. And I think it was 2 years into the office. I started in 92 at the age of 27, my
Okay,
own office, and we had 6 people that time. And this friend of mine came back from the US, a guy called Vivek Punjabi, who was my very good friend in College of Architecture. And he has started working on software and stuff there. So he came back and said, this stuff is really simple. If you want, I'll train your office at a
okay,
fee, of course. But anyway, we did that, and he had promised us that in 2 weeks we will be able to draft drawings in AutoCAD, and we actually did it. So it was a whole sea change. So from drawing perspectives, those single point, I don't even know that
right,
half the people watching it, do they understand what is single point and 2 point perspectives drawn by hand and hand painted with watercolor and oil paints. And it's difficult to get the correct material in, obviously. It's difficult to get the correct lighting in. All you get is the semblance of the building, but in a very artistic way. But even those artists that time, I remember there was an artist called Avinash Gokhale, who was an architect who had chosen to do perspectives, hand drawn perspectives, and he was brilliant. And he would finish a perspective in a day. And so there was that time when he had hand drawn perspectives, no lighting, no material. It was just like a pure art form. And from there to get into 3D visualization and then to add lights and textures. And now we've come all the way into VR, so we can actually explore the spaces from within, change materials as you're moving through. There's a sea change in the way you can actually now perceive things before they are built. You can literally perceive every space in the absolute correct manner before it's built. Of course, there's nothing to beat reality.
true,
But in terms of designing, it's great today what you are able to achieve within the office prior to having started construction, which was, of course, not the case back in 92, 93 when we started
right.
our offices.
Ironically, sir, I was born in 93, so yes, there would have been huge difference. Yeah. So you also seen Bombay grow, Bombay changing into Mumbai, and you've seen the city grow, you've seen the people change, your practice evolve. What do you have to say about your city?
Bombay City, it's sad to say, but it's one of the worst cities to live in terms of quality of life. See, for the 5-7% of us who have done already so much work or whatever, it's okay. But we are talking about the 90% of the city.
True.
Out of the 90%, there's like a 45-50% who are still living in slums. People are living in buildings called chawls, which are single roomed with corridors outside for those who don't know what a chawl is. And there are eight people staying in a room. I mean, just think of this pandemic situation where, it's okay for people like us to be sitting at homes and working from there and networking with people and still being able to coordinate drawings, design meetings, clients, and all of that. But think of those people, all the workers over here, all the workers who are actually making construction possible, making every industry possible, the cooks, the restaurant people who are serving in restaurants, every single thing, people who are working in shops, these people are sleeping in rooms of 10 by 12 feet, 8 people in a room in bunk beds. How is it possible to try and curtail this kind of pandemic if it reaches those kind of spaces?
True.
So Bombay is not the place to live in. Besides that, it is dirty. It is not cleaned, enough number of times. It has too much of population per square mile. It has one of the least amount of open spaces that any city in the world has ever. I mean, cities like Madrid,
Right.
like Berlin, have 8% to 10% garden spaces within the city.
Right.
In Bombay, it is 0.01. It is not even 1%,
Right.
0.01. So, lack of open space, lack of infrastructure, way too much population everywhere. It's not a good city to live in
True.
for
I
most
agree.
people.
I was staying at the foothills of Lonavala before coming to Germany, and I used to visit Bombay quite often. Today's Mumbai, but yes, I completely agree with you. So let's jump to our topic of discussion: communicating architecture. So, as I've already told the audience, and I would repeat again, in 2019 itself, your projects were featured to over 60 international magazines and portals in 1 year. So, sir, what according to you are the restrictions that communication offers in terms of the architectural media communication and publications?
Restrictions.
Yep.
See, publications give a glimpse of what the building is, and there is a fair amount of understanding that you can get from looking at a building
Right.
in any publication, whether it is WA Community or it is Arch Daily or whatever. So you get to see the building, and then when the building interests you, then you look at the plan. So you figure out, okay, this plan works like this, and this is the general kind of thing. So I think it's a fairly good way of communicating. The only thing it falls short of is the real experience, which of course no publication can give you.
Right.
So a video can give you something to, a much larger extent. So there is a publication that kind of gives you a glimpse into what the building is all about, what is the scale, the floor plan sections give you an understanding of what the building is. But if one was to add a video to it, a video of somebody moving in right from when you see the building first from a distance coming in and then exploring all these spaces, that would give a much better idea of what the building is. And then, of course, is the actual real experience of the building.
Right.
So I think magazines and periodicals and all of them give a fair amount of communication.
So, according to you, have the tools changed drastically? I mean, today we have so many platforms and we don't have screens. What to believe, what not to believe in terms of the architecture, also the media publications that are happening.
You don't know what to believe and what not to believe.
Because of so many platforms and social media platforms, sometimes it is difficult to gauge we have reputed journals, periodicals, and online websites, but it is no longer it's no longer logo centric. It is diversifying. There is a lot of dispersion and multiplicity of opinions. So, what do you think? Is it one? Is it a restriction for the communication to happen?
Well, that depends on person to person. I don't think one should get into opinions and discussions over design per se. It's up to you to decide for
Right,
yourself, and why take somebody else's opinion on it, unless that person
right,
is a really acclaimed critic. But for you to decide that if you like this building, you like it. There is a reason for it liking it.
right,
And then you go further into understanding why it was done. Was it done for students? Was it done for people in general? Was it done for one particular individual with their family? And based on that, make your own judgment on what the building is, and is it good? Does it work or does it not? Was it contextual? Was it responsive? Was it not? I think these decisions you can make on your own when you're looking at this thing, without trying to look at people's critiques, people's comments, because that's digressing from the entire
true,
design. What you're concerned with is design, right? So look at the design and
right,
make your own opinion.
right, true. So, sir, how is the one taking initiative for creating forums like one you did? You are curator of the Dialogues India platform. How is it?
Yes.
How much is the responsibility for bringing a difference by creating such dialogues and platforms for architecture?
I think it makes a huge difference. I mean, not just dialogues, but every platform gives a different insight, different things. So right from the Milan Design Week, which gets people from across the world in one place to discuss design in so many different forums in so many different ways. The Architecture Biennale in Venice. Now there are so many other biennales, the Chicago one, the Turkish one. So all of these are good. What Dialogues came up 4 years ago as a platform to basically connect the architectural firms in the country and provide simultaneous platforms for many different things. So A is that we found that architects, when they're called on a larger platform, it is, let's say, an architect who's done a substantial body of work is speaking. The entire audience largely comprises of younger students, the architects who just become architects, and all that. Here, it's peer to peer. So it's the architects, all who got a decent amount of work done, are only presenting amongst themselves. A. B. Dialogues create a platform for students' works to be recognized, and there are student awards given out. Then we decided that we took it last year a step further and said that a lot of these forums happen and students cannot attend them. And most forums, I've been part of so many, they say, okay, students, no, 20% seats are reserved for students. But 20% of 500 is what?
Right,
100 students. So when we went to Jodhpur city, we invited students from the entire city. And we were going to do this in Chandigarh now next, where we inviting students from the entire, and there is no limit. So if 2,000 people come, let 2,000 people come.
right,
And there's no cost to students. So the whole idea is of imparting knowledge to students and making them more aware of things. Then at the same time, there is also this whole emphasis on product design created by Indian designers. So it's a platform for that too. And the most interesting part of Dialogues while doing all these things is it has actually managed to create friendships in the fraternity which were non-existent. Till 4 years back, we went to design events and everybody, somebody knows somebody by name and maximum you say hi. Everybody is competing with everybody on some platform or the other. But here, after 4 years of dialogues, actually everybody has become a friend. So we've got now friends in every city in India. And it is so easy to connect for any simple thing. I mean, simple thing. We got a project in Indore to do for the first time. So it was like one message to an Indore architect who had come to Dialogues and now a friend. And immediately within 5 minutes, I got to know who's the best structural engineer there, who are the good contractors there. Same thing happened in Jaipur 3 months back. So I wanted to connect with the best contractors in Jaipur, the best structural engineer in Jaipur. I was immediately connected. So these kind of things never happened earlier. So there's this whole professional sharing that happens now. There was this whole platform now where architects across the country, or a bunch of us, were discussing post-COVID, what are these changes going to happen? And how do we take care of it in our offices? and how construction is going to suffer and the industry is going to suffer for a substantial period of time post this pandemic.
Right.
So how are you going to deal with it in general? So there is this whole connect that has happened, which is the most important part that dialogues is done.
Right. So you not only self-organize the architects, but you also incorporating students and creating a kind of public realm, which is really
Yes,
important. So I would like
yes,
to bring an analogy to the same by Le Corbusier. He started off sharing letters way back in 1920s with his contemporaries just to exchange ideas across the globe. And when he made his first monograph, it was also to be distributed within the fraternity. So I want to know from you, as in India, we have about 100,000 architects currently, a little over that, and about 450 architecture colleges. So, but there is still a lot of gap in communication between each other, between all of us. So, what all things or tips you would like to give to the current generation to maybe bridge the gap?
so to bridge the gap between what exactly?
To bridge the gap between
Education.
the user and the architect, or you can say the budding architects and the user, to bridge the gap between public, who are actually the
Public.
benefactors, and
So
between
this is
the
something
planners.
this is something I've spoken to a lot to people in the news,
Right.
because let's say you go to Amsterdam and you pick up a normal newspaper. You pick up a newspaper, you will see an article on design. It could be architectural design, it could be interior design, it could be a new, lighting concept that has been done somewhere. But every single day there will be an article or two or three articles on design in a newspaper, a mainstream paper that everybody reads every day. If you look at the FT weekend, the Financial Times weekend, the Financial Times weekend has a main newspaper and it's got three separate supplements to it. One supplement is art and design.
Right.
And that paper is something that I feel everybody should read. It comes every weekend. The entire 8 or 10 pages is all about design. So it's an art show happening somewhere. There's an interview with an artist. There's an architect being interviewed somewhere. There's the latest house being created by so and so. Franco Gehry did something recently here. So it's this whole thing. But in India, you pick up a newspaper. Where is there anything about design? There's never anything about design. So we've been speaking to people, we're telling them that, finally, why do we come to this whole, everywhere you go to a client and you explain, people don't understand the importance of design. In short, this is the bottom line.
True.
People in India, people worldwide also don't understand. I'm saying the general people don't understand the importance of design as much as they should. But in India, more so than the rest of the world, because design is not talked about. So
True.
it's only us architects talking to architects and architecture students and architects talking to each other, but it's not on a public platform, and that's where it needs to be. So in India also there need to be things like the Biennale, where the entire world gets an idea of what design is all about, what different kind of spaces do to them, because there's a whole psychology that spaces play, and everything, you cannot keep explaining to everyone. So if there is a general, you know, uh, like expansion
Outlook.
of knowledge of design, it would be a great thing. But for that, the main news media needs to be involved. So
True.
we're trying, and it will happen.
Very
It will
true.
happen
Right.
in the
Even
near future.
I wrote for the Tribune column, real estate column, for quite some time, the second oldest English newspaper of the country. But the moment my write-ups became too technical and advanced, they stopped communicating with me. So I wrote for quite 6 7 months, yeah, and but that's okay. Somewhere we have to start and go forward to it. So, sir, I want to ask you on the same context that after independence, in order to embrace the West, there were a lot of things done in our country in terms of infrastructure with local versus international, the dichotomy. So, in order to imitate, we partially did not consider innovation at that time. But today, if we compare to the current scenario in terms of the Indian architectural practices, they are highly innovative and creative. So,
Yeah.
what do you think should be the next step as inspiration for the upcoming budding architects of the country or worldwide?
I think it's all about because what happened in the last couple of decades, unfortunately, is like you said, a lot of aping of the West with architecture that is not responsive to our climate in general. And with the result that we've got these huge, humongous buildings which are energy traps.
True.
They are consuming far more energy than is necessary because of bad design. I mean, do you think that buildings in Bombay, recently constructed residential buildings by well-known developers, are curtain-walled residential buildings where windows are not openable beyond 6 inches, and that also just few of the windows? How? I mean, Bombay actually would have been one of the most polluted cities in the world, but thanks to the southwest breeze that is prevalent all throughout the year, it is not. So, why would you make a building that does not allow that breeze to come into your house? Because that breeze reduces the temperature inside. So, when we've had this whole godsend thing in the climate, but you're not making use of it. So, it's like that. So, its building to context now has started picking up in terms of importance, and it's all these kind of forums, if we do enough of them and we take it to the public as you said just before, and we succeed in that, which we will, because if we
Definitely.
all of us make the effort, we definitely will. So we will see in the years to come that there will be a lot more contextual architecture which is rooted in India, which belongs to India, and looks like it should be there,
Right.
not the way a lot of urbanization that has happened has simply, you know,
Sir, I lost you. Yeah. So,
stop.
yes. Yeah, you're back. So, my final question to you, sir. Any parting message to the viewers related to the current situation that we are all facing, the global pandemic crisis?
So we are all in it together. It has been very, very unfortunate, but I think as architects, we are amongst the luckiest 5% because none of us needed to have stopped work throughout this time. I've been working, my entire office has been working from different locations in Bombay, and we have continued with our work and we were able to continue all through this. So our work did not stop, which is a great thing because a lot of my friends have nothing to do
True.
on a daily basis. So as architects, you're very lucky. Let's look at the positive side. The negative side, of course, is going to happen now that obviously for many reasons, construction is going to slow down. People are going to take time to restart whatever it is they were building, whether it's a house, whether it's an office building, whether it's a residential complex, all of that. We've already got calls from developers and other clients to stall work. Some, but of course, most of them, majority are continuing at albeit a slower pace than has been before. So it's okay. We will write this out within 6 months, 8 months. I think everything should be back to normal. But we have lessons to learn. So we must, as architects, insist that every new project has to have enough housing space on that site, if it is a large enough site, for workers to stay there comfortably, a medical room, a cafeteria, so that their conditions are okay. And if anything like this ever happens again, they are taken care of and not left stranded the way it has happened.
Right. Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for joining us. I also thank all the viewers who have joined us across the globe. We'll meet you all next week with my next guest, same time on next Saturday. And thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Nice talking to you. Bye.
Same here.
And
Bye-bye.
best wishes to all of WA community and their team and everybody
Right,
who saw this. Thank you.
right.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, sir. Bye-bye.